That December morning at the Banff railway station in Alberta, Canada was bone-chilling. Snow was falling from the sky like soft cotton flakes, and standing on the platform, Liam Vaughn pulled up the collar of his leather jacket while anxiously checking his watch. Liam was no ordinary man. He was the owner of Silver Peak Lodge, a historic resort his grandfather had painstakingly carved out of the rugged mountains. But today, Liam's face didn't reflect the steadfastness of those mountains, but rather a deep, consuming anxiety. In his hands, he held up a sign that read, "Welcome, Monsieur Dubois." Liam was expecting a 60-year-old French master ice sculptor. The world-famous Banff Winter Carnival was set to begin in exactly 25 days. The prize money for the main competition was a staggering $500,000. Liam had a massive bank loan on his lodge, and if he couldn't pay it off by Christmas Eve, a greedy conglomerate named Apex Corporation would seize his ancestral property. Winning this competition was his absolute last resort. The train chugged to a slow halt at the station. Amidst the heavy snowfall, the doors hissed open. Liam's eyes frantically searched for an older, experienced French artist. But the person who stepped down from the second-class carriage made Liam stop in his tracks. It wasn't an old man, it was a young woman, probably around 26 years old. She wore a heavy, oversized men's canvas coat that seemed to swallow her frame. Slung over her shoulder was a heavy leather travel bag with iron ice-carving tools, chisels, and picks peeking out from the top. Her brown hair whipped wildly in the icy wind, and her eyes held a fierce fearlessness usually found only in those who have survived the world's harshest weather. Liam stepped forward hesitantly, raising his sign slightly. "Excuse me, are you traveling with Monsieur Dubois?" The woman stopped and looked Liam up and down. Her gaze was sharp and discerning. "You are waiting for the wrong sculptor, Mr. Vaughn," she said in a firm voice laced with a slight French accent.
Liam frowned in confusion. "What do you mean? Where is Henri Dubois? I sent him in advance." "My father is in the hospital," the girl stated flatly, showing no outward emotion. "He slipped on the ice in Paris and broke his right arm. He sent me instead. My name is Clara Dubois." Liam froze right there on the platform like a block of solid ice. His biggest and final hope had just been shattered. "Are you joking with me?" Liam hissed in frustration. "I only have 25 days. I needed the world's best ice artist, not some rookie intern who picked up her father's tools and showed up. Apex Corporation is circling my lodge like vultures. I cannot afford to take this risk." Most women would have teared up or turned on their heel to get right back on the train in the face of this biting cold and a stranger's harsh attitude. But Clara Dubois was not most women. She dropped her heavy bag onto the snow, looked straight into Liam's eyes, and said, "I crafted my father's last 3 international award-winning designs. He only put his name on the paperwork. These hands did the actual carving." She pulled her rough, scar-covered hands out of her gloves. "Give me 3 days, Mr. Vaughn. I will build a structure in your lodge's courtyard that you couldn't have imagined in your wildest dreams. If you don't like my work, I will buy my own ticket back to Montreal. But if I'm telling the truth, you will make me the lead on this project." It was an incredibly bizarre deal. A girl he hadn't even known 10 minutes ago was now asking to determine the entire future of his lodge. Liam closed his eyes, took a deep breath of the freezing air, and then wordlessly picked up Clara's bag. "My Ford truck is parked outside. You have exactly 48 hours to prove your worth, Clara." There wasn't much conversation between them during the drive. Cutting through the dense, snow-laden pine forests, Liam's truck climbed steadily higher into the mountains. Clara simply stared out the window at the snow-capped peaks, looking as if she inherently understood the quiet language of the mountains. Upon arriving at the lodge, Liam showed her the outdoor courtyard where massive, pristine blocks of ice were waiting. "This is your workspace," Liam said. Without wasting a single second, Clara began shrugging off her heavy canvas coat so she could comfortably reach her tools. But the moment the coat slipped off her shoulders, a silver chain resting against her neck was revealed. It was a very unique pendant, meticulously crafted in the shape of a geometric snowflake. The moment Liam's eyes landed on that pendant, the ground completely vanished from beneath his feet. 4 years ago, while backcountry skiing in the treacherous Whistler Mountains, Liam had been caught in a terrifying blizzard and an avalanche. He was nearly buried alive under the snow, staring death straight in the face. Then, out of nowhere, a mysterious girl riding a snowmobile had pulled him out of the ice. She had wrapped her own oversized jacket around him, dragged him to a line shack, and talked to him about snow and art all night just to keep him from slipping into a frozen sleep. She had left before the rescue team arrived at dawn. Liam had never clearly seen her face through the biting storm, but he remembered one single, unmistakable detail: the glowing geometric snowflake pendant hanging from his savior's neck. Liam's breathing hitched. He stared in absolute, paralyzing shock at Clara, who was carelessly marking her first cut on the ice. He was completely unaware that the girl he had been so ready to send away today was in fact the very stranger who had saved his life all those years ago. During that first afternoon, Liam Vaughn stood on the lodge's porch watching Clara work. The geometric snowflake pendant gleaming against her neck was hammering away at his mind like a relentless pulse. Was she really that same girl? He wanted to ask her, to stop her right there and talk about that terrifying night 4 years ago, but he forced himself to hold back. Clara was entirely lost in her work at that moment. Her eyes were fixed on the 10-foot block of ice, as if she could already see the living creature hidden deep inside it.
For the next 48 hours, Clara practically stopped sleeping. In temperatures plunging to -15 degrees Celsius, where a normal person's bones would freeze solid, Clara's chainsaw and chisel moved without pause. Liam quietly began helping her, bringing out hot coffee, clearing heavy chunks of shaved ice, and setting up halogen lights for her as night fell. When the first morning light hit the lodge's courtyard on the third day, Liam held his breath. The square block of ice had transformed into a majestic falcon, its wings fully spread in the powerful posture of taking flight. Every single feather carved into the ice was so intricately detailed that it looked as if a sudden gust of wind might blow and the falcon would actually lift off into the sky. This is unbelievable," a breathless whisper escaped Liam's lips. Clara took off her safety glasses, rubbed her freezing hands together, and offered a soft, tired smile. "I told you so, Mr. Vaughn. I didn't come here just for show. Can I lead this project now?" "Yes, and please, call me Liam." The next 20 days felt like a relentless battle for Silver Peak Lodge. For the Winter Carnival's main competition, they needed to build something far larger and more complex. The design Clara had chosen was the Guardian of the Mountain, featuring a massive grizzly bear and a wolf standing side by side. As the days slipped by, the distance between Liam and Clara began to melt away. They weren't just working together anymore, they were truly understanding each other. One evening, as both of them sat by a crackling outdoor fire pit, warming their stiffened fingers, Liam finally gathered the courage to speak. "Clara, you always wear that pendant on the outside of your coat. It's a very unique design. Where did you get it?" Clara's fingers instinctively drifted up to touch the pendant. In the flickering firelight, her eyes drifted away into an old memory.
"It's not just an ordinary pendant, Liam," she said in a soft, low voice. "It was my mother's final gift to me. Exactly 4 years ago, I was deep in the Whistler Mountains of British Columbia. A terrifying blizzard had just hit. I was heading back on my snowmobile when I noticed someone buried under the debris of an avalanche." Liam's heart slammed against his ribs with such force that it felt like his chest might crack. He stared at Clara without blinking once. "It was a young man," Clara continued, her voice steady. "He was nearly frozen to death. I pulled him out, wrapped him in my coat, and got him into a small shelter. All through the night, I kept talking to him, telling him stories just to keep him from slipping away. Right before dawn broke, When I heard the rescue sirens in the distance, I slipped away because I had to get back to my father in the hospital. I never knew if that man survived or not, but I've always hoped that wherever he is, he's safe." Tears welled up in Liam's eyes. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small, old, singed piece of heavy canvas, a scrap from the very coat that mysterious girl had wrapped him in all those years ago. "He survived, Clara." Liam's voice trembled with emotion. He gently placed that piece of fabric into Clara's open palm. "He has spent the last 4 years searching for the girl who gave him a second life." Clara stared down at the fabric, then looked straight into Liam's eyes. In that single heartbeat, a silence fell between them that was heavier and more profound than any words could ever be. A lone tear slipped from Clara's eye, freezing instantly on her cheek. Liam reached out and gently wiped it away. There were no grand declarations or cliché movie lines, just the overwhelming, unspoken realization that fate had brought them back together for a much higher purpose. Suddenly, shattering the quiet magic of the moment, a sleek black Mercedes SUV pulled up outside the lodge. Out stepped Richard Sterling, the regional manager of Apex Corporation. He wore an expensive Italian overcoat and wore a smug, venomous smile. "Oh, Liam, I honestly thought you'd have started packing your bags by now," Richard sneered, looking around the courtyard at the scattered ice and tools with utter contempt. "Word is, your famous French sculptor never showed up, and now you're pitting your hopes on this amateur kid to win the competition? The bank wants its money by Christmas Eve. I'd suggest getting ready to clear out this dump." Liam opened his mouth to reply, but before he could utter a word, Clara stepped right in front of Richard, still holding her humming chainsaw. "Mr. Sterling," Clara's voice was as cold and sharp as alpine ice. "Understanding art requires more than just money and greed, things corporate leeches like you clearly lack. 24 hours from now, when the judges arrive, you'll see with your own eyes whether this is a dump or the monument to your absolute defeat. Now get off this property before my chainsaw accidentally mistakes your expensive coat for a block of ice." Red-faced and seething with anger, Richard retreated to his car and sped off into the snow. Clara turned to Liam and said, "Come on, Liam, we don't have a single second to waste. We are going to win this competition." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of pure obsession and artistry. Finally, the evening of the Winter Carnival arrived. The entire town of Banff was bathed in glowing lights. Judges from all over the world gathered in the courtyard of Silver Peak Lodge. When the protective tarp was finally pulled away from the sculpture, a collective gasp escaped the lips of everyone present. It was no longer just a block of ice. Clara had sculpted the guardian of the mountain with such breathtaking realism that the bear's fur and the wolf's intense eyes looked almost terrifyingly alive. Hidden blue and white lights embedded from beneath cast an ethereal glow over the ice, turning the courtyard into a realm of magic. It was a flawless fusion of art, emotion, and unyielding soul, something the judges had never witnessed in their entire careers.
The result was undisputed. At 9 p.m., the head judge took the microphone. "The first prize of this year's Winter Carnival, along with the grand prize of $500,000, goes to Clara Dubois and Silver Peak Lodge." The crowd erupted in cheers. Unable to contain his joy, Liam grabbed Clara and pulled her into a tight, fierce embrace. Standing near the back of the crowd, Richard Sterling swallowed his bitter defeat and silently slipped away into the night. The lodge was saved. Liam's legacy was secure. Late that night, when the crowds had finally dispersed and the celebration quieted down, Liam and Clara stood together in front of their masterpiece. High above them in the dark winter sky, the northern lights painted shimmering ribbons of green and pink across the heavens. "Well, the project is finished," Clara said softly, looking down at the snow. "I suppose I should head back to Montreal soon. My father is recovering well now." Liam gently took Clara's hand in his. The warmth of his palm flowed effortlessly into her cold fingers. 4 years ago, you didn't leave me out there in the snow to die, Clara. And today, you stepped in and saved my entire world from slipping away. I am not letting you go that easily. This lodge desperately needs a brilliant art director, and I need you." Clara raised her chin. A peaceful, radiant smile finally broke across her face. She touched the snowflake pendant resting against her chest and whispered, "I think the guardian of the mountain wanted me to stay right here all along." Amidst the biting mountain air and beneath the magical glow of the aurora borealis, Liam leaned forward and pressed a tender, lingering kiss to Clara's lips. It was a love born in the heart of a frozen wilderness, and it was a fire that would never, ever melt away. That night, Silver Peak Lodge didn't just win a competition. 2 lost souls had finally found their permanent home.